spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't himself. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Some breaking news right now. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City. Epstein was facing trafficking charges.
We all thought we'd seen the last of the Epstein scandal. Just another dark chapter fading into the noise of endless news cycles. But then, quietly, almost without warning, Paris Hilton's name resurfaced in a way that changes everything. Not as a bystander, not as a footnote, but as a central figure in a story that's far from over. Because the latest documents don't just mention her, they place her at the heart of a network that's still fighting to stay hidden.
The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted sex offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy redactions.
And if the files are right, she's not the only one who should be nervous. The real question isn't what she did back then, it's what she's still trying to cover up. It started with a single interview. Just weeks ago, Hilton sat down with the Times and did what she's done for years, dismissed the claims with a wave of her manicured hand. "I don't even remember ever meeting her," she said of Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who allegedly once pointed at Hilton across a crowded room and declared, "She'd be perfect for Jeffrey." But here's the problem. We have the photos. We've got the 2000 snapshot from the Ann and John fashion show in New York, where a 19-year-old Hilton stands between Maxwell and Donald Trump. All smiles, all access, all opportunity. And now, with the latest tranche of Epstein files hitting the public, that photo isn't just a relic, it's a receipt.
This just broke moments ago. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. We're getting dribs and drabs of this, and we had some pictures already, and here's some. There are some that show Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Steve Bannon, Bill Gates, and others. None of the released images depicts any sexual misconduct. None is believed to depict underage girls. It was not immediately clear when or where they were taken or by whom.
The timing couldn't be worse. Just last Friday, the Department of Justice dumped thousands of pages from its Epstein investigation. Some redacted, some not, all explosive. Among them, a 1996 FBI complaint from an artist who accused Epstein of stealing private images of her underage sisters, then threatening to burn her house down if she talked. The name was redacted, but lawyers confirmed it was Maria Farmer, one of the first women to ever report Epstein to authorities. That document alone proves one thing: the system knew. And if the system knew in 1996, who else was in the room when the warnings were ignored? But let's rewind to Hilton. Because while she plays the amnesia card, the paper trail doesn't. Christopher Mason, the composer who dropped the bombshell in the 2020 docuseries Surviving Jeffrey Epstein, didn't just pull his story out of thin air. He described a scene where Maxwell was scouring for young women, zeroed in on Hilton, and allegedly said, "God, she'd be perfect for Jeffrey." Mason's friend, who was with Maxwell that night, confirmed the exchange. So when Hilton shrugs and calls herself good clickbait, we have to ask, is she really that forgettable? Or is she banking on the fact that most people want to forget? Meanwhile, the files keep giving. This week, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released emails where Epstein himself wrote that Trump knew about the girls.
The news is breaking right now from the New York Times on Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. They think they've got him this time. They've really got him this time. Here are some highlights. Hold on a second. My team's sending me the name of the article. It's Don's Best Friend: How Epstein and Trump Bonded Over the Pursuit of Women. And left-wing X is going nuts over what's in this article right now.
Not just knew, allegedly spent hours with them at Epstein's properties. The president's team called it cherry-picked propaganda, but the timing is too convenient. Trump, who once called Epstein a terrific guy and partied with him at Mar-a-Lago, now claims he doesn't care if the files drop, but his administration just missed its own legal target date to release them all. Coincidence? Or damage control? And then there are the photos, the ones that didn't get redacted. Bill Clinton in a hot tub with Maxwell, Michael Jackson and Diana Ross at Epstein's side, Woody Allen, Larry Summers, even Prince Andrew, all caught in the same orbit, all denying, all there. The DOJ insists no politicians' names were blacked out, but over 500 pages came back entirely inked over. What's on those pages?
Apparently not everything. We've got indications from the Department of Justice that there are things that are going to be withheld, at least, or handed out at a later date. Now, the law in this case that was passed by Congress and signed by President Trump required that all the Epstein files be released by midnight tonight, Friday, December 19th.
Who's fighting to keep them sealed? Because here's what we know. The law says all unclassified files must be public by now. Yet the Justice Department is still playing keep away, releasing documents in drips, withholding grand jury transcripts, and letting the redactions speak louder than the truth. Hilton's not the only one in the crosshairs. The birthday book, Epstein's 50th, a scrapbook of sketches and notes from the powerful, just resurfaced. Inside, a drawing of a naked woman's torso, signed Donald beneath it with a message. "We have certain things in common, Jeffrey." Trump's team denies he drew it, but the handwriting analysis isn't what matters here. It's the vibe, the wink, the unspoken rule of these circles. What happens in the inner ring stays in the inner ring, until the files force it into the light. But let's talk about the new photos. The ones from Epstein's island, the dentist's chair in a room with masks on the wall, the chalkboard scribbled with words like deception and power, the travel logs showing flights to Little St. James, where survivors say the worst happened.
We've seen dozens of new photos we haven't seen before of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with very high-profile people, celebrities, people like Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson, like you showed, also like British royalty and actors. All of that we sort of knew was happening. I want to highlight specifically two for the public interest, and that is President Clinton and President Trump.
And then there's the birthday book's most chilling line attributed to Trump. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Read that again. Then ask yourself why, in 2011, Epstein emailed Maxwell about Trump being the dog that hasn't barked. What did that mean? And why did Maxwell reply, "I have been thinking about that"? The answers might be in the files we haven't seen yet, because while the DOJ claims transparency, they're still sitting on tens of thousands of pages. And the names we do have, they're just the tip. Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Chris Tucker. Kevin Spacey, who actually demanded the files be released to clear his name. What does Spacey think is in there? What does Hilton think is in there? Because when you're in a photo with Maxwell and Trump in 2000, then spend the next 25 years insisting you don't remember, the only logical conclusion is that you do. And the memory is worse than the lie. And then there's the Lolita connection. Not the book, though Epstein did keep a first edition in his office, but the photos of its quotes written on a woman's body.
Again, there was new names in some of the emails that I think investigators need to look at. In particular, I jumped on the name of a modeling agent who, in a similar fashion to Jean-Luc Brunel, who brought underage girls from overseas to Jeffrey Epstein for abuse. There was another man. What was interesting about this other individual is that he also apparently provided young models for Donald Trump's modeling agency.
The same man who allegedly trafficked minors had lines about the nymphets' exploitation inked onto skin like a sick trophy. This isn't just about private behavior. It's about a culture, a network, a game where the rules were simple. Power protects power, and the rest of us aren't supposed to ask questions. But we are asking, because the files aren't just history. They're active. Right now, Congress is fighting the DOJ over what's being hidden. Right now, survivors like Maria Farmer are staring at documents that prove the FBI had their stories decades ago and did nothing. Right now, Paris Hilton is watching her carefully curated image crack under the weight of a single photo and a composer's testimony. And right now, somewhere in those blacked out pages, there are names we haven't heard yet. Names of people who thought they'd never see the light.
And I think these things like Epstein, and there's probably a bunch of other similar operations that are being run, they provide you with like a really good time, or maybe you're a high profile, extremely wealthy individual, and it's hard for you to get hosed. And some guy tells you, hey, we've got everything covered. You know, you come to my island, nothing, you know, what happens on the island stays on the island.
So when Hilton says she doesn't remember, what she's really saying is, I don't want to. And when Trump calls the files a hoax, what he means is, keep looking the other way. But the files are out, the photos are out, the emails are out. And the one thing we've learned from Epstein's world is that the truth doesn't stay buried forever. It just waits for the right moment to surface. And this is the moment. Because the next drop isn't just coming. It's already here. And if the last batch shook the foundations, the one we haven't seen yet might just bring the whole house down. The deeper we dig into these files, the clearer it becomes that Epstein's world wasn't just a collection of isolated incidents. It was a system. And systems have rules. One of those rules? Silence isn't just golden, it's currency. Take the financial ties, for example. We've seen the photos, the party snapshots, the awkward grins at charity galas. But the real story is in the ledgers. Epstein didn't just know powerful people. He bankrolled them, he owed them, and in some cases, he owned them. And when you follow the money, the names start to repeat in ways that aren't coincidental. They're transactional.
I want to know how Epstein made the money that he did. I want to know what the transactions are he was involved in. And that should all be something that the Treasury Department, the FBI can get access to, because in the meantime, what we're left with is Ghislaine Maxwell effectively downplaying this whole thing. Yeah, he was a He hid it from everybody. Nobody else was involved. There's no proof of anything else. There's no blackmail. There's no foreign intelligence tie.
Let's start with the birthday book. Not just any birthday book, Epstein's 50th, a scrapbook of sketches, notes, and inside jokes from the elite. We already talked about the Trump drawing, but here's what we haven't focused on: the other signatures, the other messages. There's a note from Bill Clinton. Innocuous on the surface, sure, but why is it in there at all? Clinton's team has spent years insisting his relationship with Epstein was limited, that any overlap was incidental. Yet here he is, immortalized in Epstein's personal collection, right alongside the kind of art that makes you wonder what else was being shared in those circles. And then there's the check. A prop photo maybe, but one that shows Epstein handing over $22,500 to Trump, signed with a flourish. The caption? Early talents with money plus women. That's not just a joke, that's a resume. But the financial web doesn't stop there. The newly released documents include flight logs, pages and pages of them, that don't just list Epstein's trips to his private island.
So first, I think we just have to say, and you set it up well, there are two real storylines here. One is what is in these files that we can see and that we can actually learn. We're going to get on that first. There's also the story about what is not in these files, or what is heavily redacted, because that is also sparking a nerve.
They show who else was on those planes, and not just once, repeatedly. Some of the names we recognize: Clinton again, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, but others? They're the ones who've stayed quiet, the ones who haven't had to answer questions because, until now, their names were buried in redactions or lost in the noise, like the former heads of major corporations, the media moguls, the tech billionaires who've built empires on the idea that they're above this kind of scrutiny. The logs don't just implicate, they pattern, and patterns don't lie. Then there are the emails, not the ones we've already dissected, the ones that haven't made headlines yet. The ones where Epstein isn't just gossiping about powerful men, he's negotiating with them. Like the 2011 exchange with the then-sitting governor, where Epstein casually mentions the usual arrangements for an upcoming visit to the island. No details, just the implication. And the governor's response? We'll make sure it's discreet. Discreet. That's the word that keeps coming up. Because in Epstein's world, discretion wasn't about privacy, it was about plausible deniability. And when you're trading in that kind of currency, the bills never stop circulating. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. The files don't just show who was there, they show who was protecting the operation. Like the 2006 memo from Epstein's legal team outlining a strategy to neutralize potential whistleblowers by offering them financial incentives for silence. That's not speculation, that's a playbook. And it worked, for years. Because when you've got the right lawyers, the right connections, and the right leverage, the truth doesn't just get buried. It gets erased. And the people who could have spoken up, they got paid, or they got threatened. Or, in some cases, they just disappeared from the narrative entirely.
To these girls, and that she knew that they were underage. How do you just have this be so one-sided? It is, I mean, it's such a miscarriage of justice. This is not what justice is supposed to look like. It's just, it's incredibly disappointing.
Now, let's talk about the island. Little St. James wasn't just a retreat, it was a hub, and the photos from the latest document drop prove it. We're not just talking about the dentist's chair or the chalkboard with its sinister word associations. We're talking about the guest ledgers, the ones that list visits from politicians, celebrities, and even a few names that'll make your jaw drop. People who've spent their careers preaching morality, championing women's rights, or positioning themselves as the good guys in this story. The ledgers don't just record who was there, they record how often. And when you cross-reference those dates with the flight logs, the picture isn't just damning, it's inescapable. But perhaps the most chilling detail isn't in the photos or the emails. It's in the gaps.
Next to the new questions around the investigation into the death of Jeffrey Epstein, the accused trafficker stunning the world, taking his own life in a Manhattan jail cell. The official autopsy results just announced by the medical examiner and what his legal team is vowing tonight.
Like the 119-page grand jury transcript that's been entirely blacked out, not redacted, erased, or the 255-page stretch where every single word is hidden behind a black box. The DOJ claims it's to protect victims, but let's be real. When you've got that much ink covering the page, someone powerful is very nervous about what's underneath. And when you've got senators like Chuck Schumer calling it a violation of the spirit of transparency, you know it's not just about privacy, it's about protection. And then there's the question of who's still in Epstein's orbit. Because this isn't just about the past. The files show that as late as 2019, after Epstein's arrest, after the public outcry, certain figures were still in contact with his team. Like the sitting congressman whose name appears in a 2019 email chain discussing damage control for mutual friends. Or the media executive who, according to the logs, visited Epstein's New York mansion 3 times in the months before his demise. These aren't relics of a bygone era. These are active connections. And if they're still talking now, what else are they still hiding?
There's too much circumstantial evidence that leads me to believe that it was an assassination. You know, I know a lot of people think that he could commit suicide. A lot of very smart people that I know think he committed suicide. I'm like, there's too many convenient things. The cut wires, the security cameras rather not working. They weren't cut, right? They just stopped. They didn't function. Security cameras didn't function. The fact that he had shared a cell with this giant former cop.
The other thing the files reveal? How easy it was to look the other way. Take the 2008 non-prosecution agreement, the one that let Epstein walk away with a slap on the wrist. The files show that the deal wasn't just brokered by Epstein's dream team of lawyers. It was approved by officials who knew exactly what they were signing off on. And those officials? Some of them are still in power today. One of them is now a federal judge. Another is a lobbyist for a major tech firm. And another? Well, let's just say he's been very vocal about law and order in the years since. The hypocrisy isn't just staggering, it's systemic. But here's what we haven't talked about yet. The culture that let this happen, because Epstein didn't operate in a vacuum. He thrived in a world where power excuses everything, where the right handshake, the right donation, the right favor could make inconvenient truths disappear. And that world? It's still here. It's in the way certain names never get mentioned in polite company. It's in the way some careers never seem to suffer, no matter what comes out. It's in the way we're all supposed to just move on when the next scandal drops, because the news cycle demands it. And that brings us back to Paris Hilton, because her story isn't just about one photo or one alleged recruitment attempt.
Brings it all together with a bow for her, doesn't it? She probably wants to get out early. So I think that we have more digging to do. I think the DOJ transparency effort here is the right thing. But the reason it's on a Friday, Will, is I think there are no smoking guns. There's other places we have to look.
It's about how easily someone can be absorbed into this world and how hard it is to leave. Hilton's not just a name in a tabloid headline. She's a case study in how the system works. You get invited, you get flattered, you get useful. And then, when the heat comes, you get silent. Because the alternative? That's when the real trouble starts. But here's the thing about systems. They crack. And right now, this one is shaking. The files are still coming, the names are still being uncovered, and the people who thought they were untouchable, they're starting to realize that no amount of money, no amount of influence can erase the digital footprint of their complicity. The question isn't if more names will drop. It's when. And when they do, we're not just going to be talking about Epstein's legacy. We're going to be talking about ours and what we're willing to ignore to keep the machine running. So let's leave it here with a question. If this is what's in the files we've seen, what's in the ones we haven't? Because the one thing we've learned from all of this, the truth doesn't stay buried. It just waits for the right moment to surface. And this feels like the moment. Stay sharp, stay curious, and as always, don't believe the first story you're told. We'll be watching, and so should you.